Maybe you're the newest employee at your company with very little experience. Maybe you struggle with a learning disability. Maybe you're getting older and things are just not working the way that they used to. Maybe you're the shortest kid on the basketball team. Maybe you're the textbook definition of the middle child. Wherever you've come from, or whatever life has thrown your way, I'd be willing to bet that everybody here has, at one point or another, had the experience of being underestimated. We all know what it feels like, don't we? Our onlookers, our co-workers, our classmates, our teammates, even our families perceive some kind of shortcoming in us, and they lower their expectations, and it stings. Think of the kid at the baseball game going up to bat. The outfielders take one look at how puny he is, his little scrawny arms, and they yell, "Move in!" Or the middle-aged, unattractive woman who gets on the stage to sing for Britain's Got Talent while everyone in the audience rolls their eyes and yawns. To be underestimated, it's like getting punched in the gut. It's a dull but lingering pain that takes the air and the life right out of us. Oftentimes, through the support of family and friends, we're able to get back up and to continue. But sometimes the experience of being underestimated can leave us feeling worthless and unwanted in this life. Now, the more I think about this dynamic, the more I'm convinced that the real pain that we experience when we are underestimated has less to do with being knocked down a few pegs or not being seen to be as great as we thought, and much more to do with rejection. When we conceive of and identify ourselves almost entirely by our skills and our capabilities, then the failure or the perception of failure in anything that we do translates to a failure of self. And this is where things really begin to hurt. It's not that we can't simply hit a ball or sing or run fast or whatever. It's that our perceived or real inability to do these things means that we are somehow worth less than the others who can, that we are sidelined and marginalized and rejected. Underestimation becomes just another ingredient in the greater identity crisis that we all struggle with as human beings. Now, with all of that in mind, I want us to look at what is happening in our gospel today. Jesus is checking in with his disciples, and he wants to know how he is being perceived by others. And we can tell from the broader context of Mark's gospel that the answer is not good. In chapter 3, we hear that the crowd say that Jesus is out of his mind, insane, and that the scribes and Pharisees say that he's possessed by Beelzebul, and that it's by the prince of demons that he drives out demons. Others have been both astounded and confused by all of the mighty works that he's been doing and all of the mighty things that he's been saying. And so they think he's a magician or a sage or one of the prophets come back from the dead. So when Jesus asks his disciples today, "Who do people say that I am?" you can imagine their hesitancy and wanting to answer, because it's not good. Though the apostles in the person of Peter are able to respond that Jesus is indeed the Christ, they know that the vast majority of people think that he's crazy or evil or a zombie. Talk about the ultimate experience of underestimation. This isn't just everyone thinking that Timmy can't hit a ball because he's small. This is creation itself failing to recognize the Creator. Darkness failing to recognize light. Man failing to respond to God himself. Now, I'd be willing to bet that if any of us were in Jesus' shoes, I know at least it's true for me, so probably true for you, we would rise up in anger at that moment and say something like, well, I'll show them, right? They want to think that about me, I'll give them something to think about, right? That's our typical response. We get defensive when we feel that we're getting rejected or underestimated. We want to prove the naysayers wrong. But that's not even remotely close to what Jesus does in our gospel today. Instead of talking about revenge or showing people what's what and what he's actually capable of, or even making a grand and obvious display of his divinity, Jesus immediately begins to take ownership of this rejection and the underestimation that he's experiencing. He doesn't bemoan and he doesn't complain. In fact, he tells his disciples that all of this rejection and misunderstanding is going to result in his death, a reality that he openly embraces. And he's not sad or devastated or depressed about it either. Jesus is as strong and as confident in this gospel as ever. Now, this is mind-boggling to us because it doesn't make sense. So no wonder Peter pulls him off to the side and rebukes him about this. We can only imagine what that conversation would have been like, right? Peter, who's always ready for the fight, telling Jesus, come on, don't be a chump. Let's go show them, right? We can really put them in their place, Jesus. Let's go. And Jesus turns to him and he has these haunting words for Peter. He says, get behind me, Satan. Oof, ouch. Get behind me. You are not thinking as God does, but as human beings do. Now, this whole episode should cause us to take a deep breath, a step back, and then reevaluate ourselves and our lives and our identities. How much effort do we spend trying to be liked and appreciated and admired and loved by others? How much of our time is spent trying to avoid rejection and trying to win the esteem of the crowds? It's not wrong to want to be loved. We have people in our lives who love us for who we are. But it's an exercise of futility in trying to get everyone to love us. The reality is, the more that we focus on ourselves, the more that we will attempt to use others to feel good about ourselves. But Jesus shows us a completely different way. He invites us, by his own example, to be okay with the experience of rejection and underestimation. He invites us to experience these realities and to strongly and confidently endure them, because when we do, they unleash a great power. They become opportunities for us to get over ourselves, to shed our selfishness, and to grow in true humility. Along with Christ, the rejection and the underestimation that we experience in the here and now can lead us to the cross, where we can die to ourselves in order that we might rise with him. See, Jesus was not interested in using the crowds for their praise and their glory and their love, even though he, above all, deserved it. He was more interested in loving them, in dying for them, so that they might have life. Now, unlike the divine Son of God, our death to self does not objectively affect the salvation and the redemption of the human race, but it certainly participates in it. By dying to ourselves, we become free from the shackles of pride and of vanity and of self-interest, free from the obsessive need to draw attention to ourselves, free from the exhausting work of just trying to get everybody to love us. And by dying to ourselves, we become free to love more totally and recklessly than ever. We have the freedom to spend our time in a soup kitchen rather than in front of a mirror, as St. James asks us to do in our second reading today. We have the freedom to become lost in prayer rather than in a shopping mall. We have the freedom to listen to someone else's heartache rather than wondering when we get to share ours. Ironically and paradoxically, the rejection and the underestimation that we feel unjustly deprives us of love can become in Christ the very means by which we learn how to love as he loves. And when we unlock that, we find ourselves in the perfect position to allow him to love us as totally and as completely and as deeply as we've been waiting for everybody else to love us. So the next time that life presents us with rejection, however big or small, whether it's someone who just, is mean to you in the line at the grocery store, or whether someone says something really hurtful for you, whether they're underestimating your capabilities or they're thinking less of you than you deserve, enter into the experience. Don't run away from it. Go into it. And allow it in its own way to chip away at whatever lingering pride there might be there, and offer it all to Jesus on his cross. And then listen closely as he teaches us how our death to self can bring life and love beyond all imagining. Listen to the words that end our gospel today. Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it.